All right, so yesterday somebody hacked a few of the Solana wallet providers. It doesn't look like the hack occurred on the chain itself. It looks like it was a seed phrase leak from some of the wallet providers. However, we don't know exactly what the cause is at this point. And as a matter of fact, I believe it is still ongoing. And so up to this point, over 7,000 wallets have been affected, probably even more up to this point. The dollar amount stolen is relatively small. I want to say it's near 10 million, which is a lot. Don't get me wrong. But compared to other hacks that we've seen in the past, it is pretty small. The biggest thing with this, though, is that it is mostly retail investors, so people who only had a couple grand in their wallet. That was probably most of what they had invested. Those are the people that are sort of losing the most from this hack. So that's who the hacker is stealing from. I do have two threads that I want to share with you guys. One is from Emin Gun Sirer. He is the founder of Avalanche. I don't know if I pronounced his last name correct. Emin, if I mispronounced your name, I apologize. But he put out a statement on Twitter, or a thread on Twitter yesterday, right as the hack was going on. And I think he does a good job of sort of breaking down what was happening up to the point. Now, again, these do not offer solutions or total overviews of what was occurring. We're still trying to figure that out. So he starts off the thread by saying there's an ongoing attack targeting the Solana ecosystem right now. 7,000 plus wallets affected and rising at about 20 per minute. Because it's very early and the attack is ongoing, there's a lot of misinformation and speculation, so here are a few thoughts and clarifications. First of all, our hearts go out to the Solana community. Attacks like this affect not just the directly targeted system, but everybody in the space indirectly by eroding people's confidence in the space. Here's hoping for a quick clarification and recovery if possible. So what he's saying here is that hacks like this, even though that a lot of people look at AVAX and Solana as competitors, hacks like this aren't good for anybody, okay? It hurts the entire ecosystem because it erodes trust in the ecosystem. People start to get scared of hacks, and so they end up pulling out of crypto altogether. So nobody wins in scenarios like this. Because the transactions are signed properly, it's likely that the attacker has acquired access to private keys. But how? One possible route is a supply chain attack where a JS library is hacked and it steals users' private keys. Affected wallets seem to have been created within the last 9 months, but there are reports of freshly created wallets also being affected. So he's saying that it seems like it might be a back-end attack, so the way that private keys were stored on these wallets, and somehow the hacker got a hold of these private keys. IOTA was compromised by such an attack and never quite recovered. If the same key is in two different hands, it is difficult to figure out who the legitimate owner is. Stopping the chain wouldn't help. The attack would resume when the chain resumes. So what he's saying here is that when you end up with two people who hold the private keys to a wallet, when you don't have KYC or know your customer, so like there's no like license or anything that ties you to your wallet, they don't know who the legitimate owner of that wallet is. So it's really hard to tell through the computer digitally who actually owns the wallet. And this is one of the reasons I would advocate for it's when you get into the regulatory space, it's so wishy-washy and people have a lot of different opinions. And while I understand why you would want to be able to remain anonymous, at the same time, I think for some wallets, a degree of KYC would be nice, or a way to KYC you without having to necessarily dox yourself. If we could figure that out, I think that would be amazing for situations exactly like this. And he's also saying that you can't just stop the chain, because if you stop the chain, it'll pause the hack for now, but once you turn the chain back on, everything will just resume. I kind of see the argument there, although if they could pause it, figure out what is occurring first, then resume it, maybe they could preemptively stop it before the attack could continue. I'm not sure. A lot of people have suggested about faulty random number generator. This seems to be really anachronistic. 10 years ago maybe, but we now know what not to do during private key generation. So I would be shocked if the hacker was cracking the keys because of a lack of entropy. Another suggestion was browser exploit /0day. This also seems highly unlikely, partly because there are reports from multiple systems and browsers, and partly because it would affect all internet systems, not just Solana. So where does that leave us? The best candidate explanation so far is from this Ava Labs, Patrick Grady, a potential nonce reuse that ends up revealing the private key. And then he links a thread to this Patrick guy's thread. I'm not going to go into that one. This isn't the EVM style nonce, by the way, but the P's and Q's used in the crafting ECDSA signatures. In all cases, hardware wallets and checks seem to be unaffected, so those of you holding your Sol assets on those systems ought to be fine. So if hardware wallets don't seem to be affected, people who are holding their Solana on exchanges don't seem to be affected. Wishing a quick recovery to everyone affected by this problem in the Solana ecosystem. So the statement above, talking about the checks and the hardware wallet people, this kind of goes back to what I said at the beginning, where it seems like this is a wallet provider issue. That would make sense as to why the centralized exchanges aren't having an issue and why people using hardware wallets aren't having an issue, because they're storing their private keys themselves. They're not relying on a third party to do so, which is what you often do when you're using like an internet browser wallet. Next, I have another thread from foobar. So foobar is a well-known crypto Twitter account, and they also put this tweet out almost at the exact time that the hack was announced or broadcasted, shown to everybody. Widespread Solana private key compromise. Attackers stealing both native tokens, Sol, and SPL tokens like USDC, affecting wallets that have been inactive for greater than 6 months. Both Phantom and Slope wallets reportedly drained. And then it shows some Explorer pictures here, screenshots showing the tokens being taken. Exploit cause is unknown, might be an upstream dependency on supply chain attack. So this is something that Emin also said, it could be a supply chain attack. Revoking approvals will probably not help, only transferring to an offline wallet or hardware wallet. Sample attacker wallet here. I'm not going to click on that. Again, it's just more transactions shown that the hacker is taking money. Why doesn't revoking approvals help? Because these Sol and SPL transfers are signed by users themselves, not transferred away by third party using approvals. So while you can revoke, it's likely something caused the widespread private key compromise. So what he's saying is revoking access to sites probably won't work in this case, because if your private seed phrase is compromised, it doesn't matter if you revoke access or not. If they have your private keys, they have total control over your wallet. The solution is to transfer assets into wallets which have never been exposed or have never exposed a private key to potentially vulnerable browser extensions. That means hardware wallets, nothing else. So essentially, if you have money stored in a hot wallet, you should take it, put it in a hardware wallet, because the private keys in a hardware wallet are not ever touching the internet. So that's why a hardware wallet is so secure, because it stores your keys in the device itself. And when you go to do a transaction, it never actually puts your keys on the computer or ever connects it with the internet. So that's why hardware wallets are so secure. If you don't have a hardware wallet, the best course of action is to limit any upstream telemetry that could be happening. Ironically, close your browser, shut down your computer. Airplane mode works as well for anything touching packs until the exploit cause is known and fixed. Several have pointed out that transferring assets to reliable checks is another holdover strategy if you don't have a hardware wallet. This is most approachable for less experienced users. So, moral of the story here, guys, is if you don't have one, definitely get a hardware wallet. It is the safest place you can keep your crypto. Okay, it saves you if, centralized exchanges, just like we've seen with, BlockFi and all these exchanges in the past, Mt. Gox, they can go insolvent. And when they go insolvent, you can't get your money out because technically you don't have the keys. The other end of the spectrum is hot wallets, sort of like, what you see on browser wallets, so like MetaMask on your browser. Then you have your keys, but the issue there is that your keys live online. And as we know, the internet is not very secure. There's lots of hackers out there, and so you don't really want your keys sitting on your browser. That's pretty easily accessible for a hacker. A hardware wallet is a perfect in-between where you're off the exchange, but your private keys are not stored on your computer. They're stored on the air-gapped hardware wallet. And so, again, they never actually touch the internet. So, guys, if this hack has affected you, if you have a Solana wallet and it is not a hardware wallet, I would recommend moving your assets to an exchange for the time being. Again, this is if you don't have a hardware wallet, just until this blows over and they find a reason as to what happened and what's going on here. Let them figure out the solution before you keep, don't keep your assets on a Solana wallet at this time unless it's a hardware wallet. That's my suggestion. That's what everyone seems to be saying. If you don't know how to do either and you're like freaking out right now, you can turn your PC off, you can turn everything off, disconnect it from the internet, and then basically there's no way to access your private keys. You've essentially just turned your computer into a hardware wallet because it's not connected to the internet, so the hacker can't access it. Again, that's not an ideal solution because most of us use our computers for other things, but technically that is a way that this could work. So, guys, I hope you found this video useful. I'll continue to follow this Solana story. I would ask if you please haven't already, like and subscribe to the channel. We cover all things crypto on this channel, and your support is what keeps me going. So thank you guys, and I will see you next time.